We use 2022 data because that's the last data that was available from the USDA. And even though we're standing here in 2024, that's the best we could do. A couple of big takeaways was, one, it was a phenomenal year for Nebraska agriculture for exports. We hit almost $10 billion in exports from the state of Nebraska in agriculture. We had records in soybeans and in beef. Corn, not quite, but those are our big three. But we also export pork, soybean meal, vegetable oil. I call those kind of the offensive linemen of our ag exports because they're right in there. So that's kind of a big takeaway. Another is that filters directly down to our counties in terms of their values. And so the report tries to take those big USDA numbers and boil them down and make them a little more realistic. And so some of our counties, I think there were 6 of them that derived over $200 million worth of value out of our ag exports. Platte, Cumming, Custer County were 3 of the biggest. And so those are real dollars that those counties, those communities are seeing out of our ag export market. So I think that's probably the 2 biggest takeaways out of the report.
Well, what we know about trade is it gives us the base of our commodity price. You can look at it 2 different ways. You could say, does it add to the top, or does it give us the base price? And I would say really more, it's that base pricing. It's a market that's just been there and allows us to grow a certain amount all the time because we know we're trading at least this much. Then you put on top of that domestic market. Now when you put together the volatility of both the domestic and the foreign trade, and now you get some more volatility. But we just know history says that we cannot consume everything that we produce. And so the bottom line, we need to find mouths and places for our commodities, and that's outside of the United States borders. And we have a great reputation, but we need to continue to foster those relationships. And so it's important that we have good policies in place, and it's a good thing to remind producers, like right now they're planting their corn, remind them that trade policy is really important because 1 out of 5 rows of corn, almost half soybeans, gets exported somewhere around the country.
You got to go back a little bit and think, okay, what was happening in 2022? And I think there are a couple things in terms of what was driving the exports. One was the global economy was rebounding from COVID and the pandemic. And so people were coming out of it, and you saw a little more of a surge in purchasing, and so countries were coming into the market to buy. And at the same time, there were some production issues across the world in terms of some of the commodities that we produce. And so there was a strong demand. People turned to the United States, and we had strong prices. So that really helped. I think one of the things that sometimes we forget a little bit, though, our biggest customers, with the exception of China, all have free trade agreements with the state or United States. So Japan, South Korea, Canada, Mexico, they're all operating under a free trade agreement. So those free trade agreements are vital and important for our country, and the state of Nebraska, but our country in terms of our ag exports and where our exports go.
Historically, if you look back when we sign a free trade agreement, volume goes up almost double. And so since we're not signing those currently, and they take quite a while to do as well, so if we're not even in process of working on, it really gives us a lag. And the thing is, other countries are working on trade agreements. They're not sitting idling by. They're taking advantage of the fact that the U.S. is not doing trade policy very well right now. So we've been sending the message to the Biden administration, talking to their people about we really, really need to get back in the game.
When we started doing this report, we had a couple hopes. One was to try to reinforce the importance of trade to the state of Nebraska, because I think it gets overlooked oftentimes. We talk about ethanol, we talk about some of the feeding, and those are all very important, but there's a third leg, I guess, if you will, and that's the export market. The second was we tried to break it down to make the numbers a little more real to folks and a little more, I guess, on the ground in the sense of breaking it down by county, so they could see, hey, I'm in Custer County. This is worth $245 million to me. So we're hoping that farmers and ranchers and others will take this information, and when they talk to elected officials, particularly at the federal level, our members of Congress, but this year's an election year. We're going to be electing a president. Trade is on the agenda. Think about that and use this information and point out the importance of trade to the bottom line, and ask people, our elected officials, to work to expand trade, to grow our markets, and to help out your bottom line.